All right, good afternoon, trustees, staff, and members of the public who are joining our April 7th, 2026 Policy and Bylaw Standing Committee meeting. This meeting is called to order. And we welcome all my trustee colleagues and also our guest trustee, Carolyn Butterworth, to join our policy meeting today, and also welcome our senior leadership as well. Before we begin, I'd like to invite Trustee Cohen to deliver our land acknowledgement. Trustee Cohen, whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much, Chair. We affirm that we are all treaty people and acknowledge that the York Region District School Board is located on the lands of 2 treaties. These treaties have been signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the First Nations of the Williams Treaties, who are the Mississaugas of Alderville, Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Scugog Island, and the Chippewas of Beausoleil, Rama, and Georgina Island, who is our closest neighbor and partner in education. To honor this agreement, we will take up our responsibility to be respectful of their traditions, knowledge, and inherent rights as sovereign nations. We will respect their relationship with these lands and recognize that our connection to this land is through the continued relationship with these First Nations. And we acknowledge our shared responsibility to respect and care for the land and waters for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Cohen. Approval of agenda. Without objection, the agenda as presented shall be adopted. Is there any objection, trustees? Okay. Without objection, the agenda for this afternoon's meeting is adopted. Declaration of conflict of interest. At this time, the chair will ask any trustee who has a direct personal interest or direct or indirect pecuniary interest in any matters being discussed by the board during this meeting to state the conflict in nature thereof. Approval of minutes of previous meetings. The minutes for the March 3rd, 2026 Policy and Bylaw Standing Committee meeting had been distributed to all trustees. Are there any corrections to the minutes, trustees? Okay. As there are no corrections, the minutes are approved as presented. Thank you. Director's remark. Now I would like to recognize Director Kober to provide his remarks. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the opportunity. I want to share with mixed emotions some information for the Policy Committee this evening. It is with mixed emotion that I congratulate and thank our policy officer, Daniel Roberto. Daniel has been a star policy advisor here and policy officer in the York Region District School Board, and is advancing in his professional career and is leaving us to become the deputy clerk of the town of Aurora. And so want to offer congratulations to Mr. Roberto, and I also want to acknowledge how conscientious he is. He is working right through, because knowing that we had policy and committee today, he is working right through, and he didn't set up his start time with Aurora until tomorrow, because he wanted to work right through and take us right through our April policy meeting. And it's a wonderful opportunity for you, Daniel, and we are thrilled for you, sad for us, but we know that you're going to contribute great things in the town of Aurora, which is still a part of our family here with our 9 municipalities, and we know we'll continue to stay connected and work with you and collaborate on a number of things. But we wish you all the best, and it's going to be, you're going to be missed here, but we congratulate you and wish you all the best going forward. So I wanted to share that with committee, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much. And then the opportunity to look at the policies that we have and look forward to the dialogue this afternoon. We have policies for first review, policy 221 on student trustees and policy 223 on Indigenous student trustee, and look forward to the dialogue with the group. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Director, for your message. And once again, congratulations, Daniel, for your upcoming role. Delegations. There are no community delegations before the committee this afternoon, so we are going to move into our policy for first review. Policy 221, student trustees. I would like to recognize Trustee Services and Policy Officer Daniel Roberto to share the policy for annual overview. Daniel?
Thank you, and through the chair, thank you, Director Kober, for the kind words. It was a pleasure working with staff in the development of several new policies as a result of new and revised legislation and regulations, and also in the review of existing policies and procedures to reflect legislative and operational requirements. And also thank you to trustees and the Policy and Bylaw Standing Committee for their review of board policies and procedures. And to move on to the first policy for this afternoon, today we have Coordinating Superintendent of Education, Equity, Inclusive School and Community Services, Research and Assessment Services, Lois Agard, Superintendent of Education, Leadership Development and Engagement, Grant Fothrop, General Counsel Fanny Im, and Manager Trustee Services Audrey Ballard to share updates to Policy and Procedure 221, Student Trustees. This policy was last reviewed in 2022 and is now due for first review. This policy and procedure supports student voice and the contribution of student leaders in the learning process. This policy reflects the board's commitment to elevate student voice in learning assessment and decision-making. This policy outlines the process of student trustee appointments, support structure, professional development, and expense reimbursement guidelines for student trustees. This policy was developed in accordance with the Education Act and Ontario Regulation 707, Student Trustees, where a compliance review of the applicable legislation and regulation was also completed. As you can see throughout the document, revisions were minor to improve grammar and formatting. Section 2 of the procedure was revised to align with the principles of appropriate and modest expenses in accordance with the broader Public Sector Accountability Act and Policy Number 131 expenses, which was recently brought forward to the Policy and Bylaw Standing Committee for first review. In terms of next steps, if approved by the committee this evening, the policy will be posted as a working document for 6 school months to gather public feedback. And I'll turn it over to Grant, Lois, and the team for additional comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel, through you, Chair. So just a few highlights here. So as Daniel said, there was significant changes made 4 years ago to the procedure in this policy, or connected to this policy, and so that was the changes in terms of the 4 quadrants and so forth in terms of how elections happen for student trustees and making sure that we have areas represented in terms of the election process, where we have representatives. There's a first stage of elections where there's representatives from all 4 areas, and then it breaks down to a final election where 2 candidates are chosen from that pool. So that took place not too long ago. And again, for this policy and this procedure, there was very little changes in terms of internally. It's first review, and we're looking forward to sending it to subcommittee and also to for further public comment, and so opening up the 6-month window. Again, just to clarify as well too, so there was significant changes, some cursory changes in terms of grammar, which Daniel alluded to in terms of the policy, but there wasn't significant internal changes, and so pretty standard. And so again, it's up for first review as part of the 4-year cycle, and we're following along that schedule. I can pass it over to Lois.
Thank you, Grant. And the only additional piece I'd like to add is as it relates to the Indigenous Student Trustee. Again, as Grant said, there was an extensive review that occurred in the previous revisions. And what we did was follow up as well this time to ensure that as it relates to our relationship with our closest partners, Chippewas of Georgina Island, that there was input there in making sure that as it relates to the Indigenous Student Trustees experience, having contact with the student trustee and finding out their experience of it to see if there's anything that needs to be updated, as well as the staff that support the student trustee. And so from that lens, all of the updates that occurred in the last revision were supportive of continuing with the the work that we're doing now, so thank you.
Okay, thank you, Grant and Lois, for the informations. Once again, members, the chair would like to remind everyone that your question must be germane to the policy. Are there any questions? Okay, yeah. Trustee Butterworth, please go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you very much for the report, and through you, Chair. I would like to ask about the eligibility to run for a second term. We've met through OPSPA and so on, many student trustees, and it seems to be different in different regions. Have we always given the option to run for a second term? And if so, why? And I would also like to just, if we're trying to, in my opinion, I'm just sort of stating something here, if we're trying to open up opportunities for students, to represent student voice and so on, and equity of access, all the sort of terms that I took from that, would we be better off to just limit it to 1 year and not have the option to run again? I'd like to hear the reasoning behind that, if you have any sort of justification on why we allow that. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Butterworth, and through you, Chair. So this will be the second year, actually, where we've had an elected student trustee candidate who's going to be undertaking their second year of duties as student trustee. And so this has been a recent change to our policy and procedure. And in fact, there's been 2 instances in recent memory now where we've had 2 people. And so from a supervisory position in which I'm in, I can say that a benefit that I would say, and this is just perspective here again, is that and how the elections work is the student trustees are elected, and we go through the election process starting in December. And then they're elected by February, which to the ministry it's due in terms of us notifying the ministry in terms of when our student trustees are been appointed or elected. So it's an interesting crossover. And the fact that someone is coming back for a second year has allowed some carryover where we can pass over the work. Because we've now got a new student trustee, who's waiting in the wings, but is going to be waiting months to start in September. And we've got one that's going to be continuing on into September and is going to be able to kind of liaise or help to transition the incoming person. So that's been a benefit in that regard. But the objective, if I can say, and it was predated me, in terms of how we now procedurally do the elections, was equity of access, as you said, and to ensure that we have really the concern, as I understood it, and I've met with the previous superintendent on this, is that we wanted to ensure that there was equity access across the board for opportunity for students to be represented here as a student trustee. And we are certainly getting representation in terms of all 4 CECs, and they're able to come to the last ballot, which is the second stage of the election process. So that, I can say, has been achieved. So to your point, I think there's some benefits of the transitional piece, but in terms of a second-year representation, that is something that's worthy of discussion. And I think the original intent of some of the procedural pieces was an equity of access piece. And so, but just speaking to a little bit of a benefit there too.
Thank you. So to follow up then, I'd like to hear from my colleagues on that then in terms of what they think, because I think I see both sides. Obviously the benefits of both, and I would not, don't want to outweigh that, but at the same time, I want to make sure that we are looking at it through the lens of giving students as many leadership opportunities as possible. And if this is, I don't want to say a barrier, that's a little strong, but if this is, kind of preventing that, I just want to make sure we've thought about all of that when we look at our policy. So that's just what I wanted to bring up in discussion. Thank you.
And through you, Chair, if I can say as well too, we have a very robust student representation in YRPC, which runs alongside, and we supervise that in LD&E as well. So there's representation from all 33 secondary schools, generally speaking, and quite a turnout in which we meet a few times a year. And so there's a large set of responsibilities there, and there's an executive and a council there. And so there's representation there, but point taken, Trustee Butterworth, and thank you for that.
Okay, thank you, Grant, and thank you, Trustee Butterworth, for your questions. Moving on, I will recognize Trustee Cohen for your question.
Thank you, Chair. It's okay. In 221.1, I believe, it said that all board students from grades 5 to 12 will vote for the student trustees. I was just wondering, how do student trustees present themselves to all of these students, especially the little ones, the grade 5, 6, 7, 8? I just wonder about that process. Are they actually able to represent the younger ones, or do they need their own trustee? And then part of that question is, when I visit classes in schools, sometimes we're introduced to the school trustee, which is endearing. And I wondered, is that just something that goes on within the schools, or is that an official title for instance, the public schools? Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Cohen, and through you, Chair. So we can answer a few pieces to that. So one, there's quite a campaign procedure in terms of the student trustee elections, and so and it's advertised throughout the board with the assistance of corporate comms. There's a multitude of ways that the candidates get their message out there and advertise their message, and that's done with the assistance of corporate comms and certainly oversight of our department. And so there is a video in the last stage, and so there's two stages to the election. There is the local stages of the CECs, which are in the 4 regions, and there's an opportunity for candidates to come forward and put themselves forward and be elected within their region. And then it goes to the second stage from the region. There's an election process. So there's 4 regions. There's representatives from 4 regions. And then there's 2 candidates that are voted from their peers as the student trustees representing from those 4 regions. And so in the first stage, there's an opportunity for them to put a poster together, an online poster presence, or it's advertised to schools where students can, from 5 to 12, access that and see what their platform is. And there's an election that takes place there. And then in the second stage, there's a quite comprehensive video and interview, which we participate in with corporate comms, where they answer questions, the candidates answer questions, and there's a video online that students can access and see their platform and see their responses to questions that are related to really our multi-year strategic plan and so forth. And so that's really the presence or the online advertisement in terms of their campaigning. And for students of grade 5 to 12 to access. And so that's where they can seek their message and how they get their message out. And so there's a windows of time in which they can access that, which is advertised, and they can participate in the voting, which we tabulate here as well.
Thank you, Trustee Cohen, for your question. Moving on, we will move on to Trustee Mahmood. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I want to expand on earlier comment by my colleague, Trustee Butterworth. I know that a couple of years ago, we introduced this change to the policy. I think it's about time when we should bring it back with some comparison of what we have gained and what we haven't, right? Or what are the benefits, because we tried it. It was forever, it was one way, that we would not allow anybody to run for again. So now we made a change. I think it's about time. So I don't know if it's part of this discussion, but we would like to see some comparison or analysis of that, what has gained, what we have gained in terms of the whole idea of having a student trustee is that creating an opportunity for leadership. And then if, based on the experience which we have seen in 2 years, we have not been able to create that or have created a kind of a barrier, if you want to call it, to that commitment, then we need to go back and take a look at it. So that's my comment on that. I can move a motion if required to have a report on that, if per se, but I'm not sure if this is part of the policy. Parliamentarian can guide us if this is required.
Director Colbert? Yeah.
3, Mr. Chair. Are you sharing that as feedback in the first review process for staff to take back?
Excellent, yeah.
That
that's
would
fine.
work?
That should work.
Okay, thank you. Staff can capture that for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And coming back to Chair, to you, my question, I found one language a little bit confusing for me. So I am on page 3, or if you want to call page 9 of 31 of agenda, under section 2.2, bullet point C, providing an information report to the Board of Trustees at monthly board report or monthly meeting relating to the role of YRDSB student trustees to represent the interests of all pupils at the YRDSB who are in the last 2 years of the intermediate division and senior division. The last part is just throwing me off. Why would they only be in the interest of the all pupils who are in the last 2 years of intermediate? Are they only representing those 2 divisions? Are not they representing all the students?
Okay, sorry.
Mr. Chair, under the regulation through the government, they represent the senior last 2 years. Those are the students they represent. So although it's, they're trying to help all kids, those are the responsibilities of their job as student trustees to represent the last 2 years of the senior.
Thank you very much for
And
that clarification. So
it's in
it's-
regulation
No, I trust you.
70.
I trust you. You said so.
Whatever it's listed there.
It's as clear as mud as usually in the government regulations is, so I'm good with that. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Trustee Mamou. And I will move on to Trustee Sinclair. I know that Trustee Cone has her second question probably related to the issue that Trustee Mamou raised. So we'll move on that. Okay, Trustee Sinclair, please.
Oh, sorry. I'm busy watching the screen. Thank you, Trustee Chair. I'm on the side where, as Trustee Mamou just spoke about, this was a very contentious issue at the time when it came to the board. And I'm not sure if we have a corporate history of what went down, but it wasn't really well received, but it passed because, well, for whatever reason. But with the contention that it would be tried and make sure it was fully examined before it finally becomes part and parcel of what we do. So I'm in favor and let us find out our corporate history, and for what Trustee Mahmood just talked about, let's find out some more before we make it the law, because I'm all for what Trustee Butterworth said, the whole idea of student trustees, and most boards only go for 1 year. I couldn't find any other board that does the 2 years, is to give as many leadership opportunities to as many students as possible, rather than one group of students hogging it all the time. And that was the reason why we went to 4 sessions for ECEs, rather than before it used to be the whole board. And as a board, we decided each area should have an opportunity to elect a student trustee. So along those same lines, we should maintain that. That was the whole notion behind it, to make it as wide open as many opportunities for all students. So I'm in favor of it. Let's just have a look at this a little bit deeper. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Dr. Sinclair. I believe, yes, Fanny has a response on that. Please go ahead.
Thank you for the question, Dr. Sinclair, and through you, Chair. Echoing Director Kober's statement that we will take that feedback back and consider it with due regard to the statutory interpretation issue, as the Education Act does not restrict the terms of student trustees, so it will require careful statutory interpretation to ensure that we're on side with the Education Act. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I will move on. I see that Trustee Cindy Liang has her question, so I will invite her to speak before Trustee Cohen. Cindy?
You Chair, thank you. So I also want to add some comments regarding to student trustee allowed to have a second year election. So for my understanding, so for student trustee will be the one represent student, and then so we need to use the student trustee to helping this to represent student, and then pass the voice to to the board, and then we need to have a battle. Do we want to use this opportunity to train the leadership, or we try to use the student who have a better leadership? They already developed the leadership, and then so to represent the students. So I believe why we change this one is make sure every single year we have a strong leadership student already to represent student. So I just provided some comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Liang, for providing your perspective. I will now move on to Trustee Cohen, please.
Thanks, Chair. Just one more thought came into my mind. I believe it says in the policy that only grade 11s or 12s may be elected to this position. So I'm thinking equity. If you are lucky enough to get elected in grade 11, then you might have a 2-year stay in that position. But if you're a grade 12 who gets elected, you only have 1-year option because you're off to university or wherever. So I was just thinking about that as far as an equity thing. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Cohen, for providing that perspective. I believe that the policy team definitely will look into the recommendation that we are voicing. And since this is a working policy, so definitely there's still a lot of opportunity to communicate with the senior teams on that. So I don't see any other trustees have questions. If so, without objection, the recommended motion shall be adopted. That in accordance with Board Policy 285, Board Policies, Procedures, and Supporting Documents, Policy 221, Student Trustees will be circulated for comment for 6 school months. Okay. And without objection, the aforementioned motion is adopted. Thank you very much, everyone. We are going to move to review Policy 223, Indigenous Student Trustee. And once again, I would like to recognize Policy Officer Daniel Roberto to provide an overview. Daniel?
Thank you. And through the chair, today we're back with Coordinating Superintendent of Education, Equity, Inclusive School and Community Services, Research and Assessment Services, Lois Agard, Superintendent of Education, Leadership Development and Engagement, Grant Fothrop, General Counsel Fanny Im, and Manager Trustee Services Audrey Ballard to share updates to Policy and Procedure number 223, Indigenous Student Trustee. This policy was last reviewed in 2022 and is now due for first review. This policy and associated procedures supports student voice and the contribution of Indigenous student leaders in the learning process, and also outlines the process of the Indigenous student trustee in the appointment process, support structure, and professional development and expense reimbursement guidelines. Revisions were made throughout the document, along with a compliance review completed in accordance with Ontario Regulation 707 under the Education Act. In terms of next steps, if approved by the committee, the policy will be posted as a working document for 6 school months to gather public feedback. And I'll turn it over to Lois, Grant, and team for additional comments. Thank you.
Thank you, and I prematurely gave my comments earlier when we were speaking about the student trustee, but essentially the revisions for this were done the same with the student trustee. And in this case, prior to bringing it to this group, we did take it through a consultation process, ensuring that the work that we had presented was in alignment with the Chippewas of Georgina Islands. So it was shared with the Director of Education there. It was shared with high school students representing that community as well as it was shared with the incoming student trustee, the incoming Indigenous student trustee, as well as the staff members who support this trustee. It is a unique position, one that has come with the role of trustee already has, a student trustee already has a lot of responsibilities, and then the added need to support the identity is one that we ensure that the staff are there to support the young person in that role. And so it was reviewed with the team as well, just to ensure that the comments here were still in alignment. And the team has thought that this is supportive of the Indigenous student trustee, and we look forward to having it open for review over the 6 months.
Thank you, team, for the background information. Once again, I'd like to invite all my trustee colleagues to ask questions and make sure the questions are germane to the policy. Trustee Mahmood, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So we do understand this position, although it's a student trustee for Indigenous students, but it has way more wider responsibility because your Indigenous trustees could be everywhere. So essentially, which I always have amazed at how much of a work is one single student trustee representing the Indigenous students can do, because there could be one student, two students in any of the schools, and then they're representing them. And that's quite a responsibility. But at the same time, most of these, or I think all of these students who have been a student trustee who came across to the board, they were in one of our high schools. I'm wondering, and just as an inquiry through you to the staff, what's our experience that have these students been elected from the schools where we had a larger number of Indigenous students present, or they were just number of students, but they did a good job representing themselves to the other student trustees, because to the Indigenous students, so that they can be elected? Because I'm assuming the only students who can vote for this position are the ones who self-identify as an Indigenous student. So just wondering what has been the history, if that information is available.
Thank you, Trustee Mahmood. Director?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Trustee Mahmood. To be candid, the process isn't as robust and competitive as the trustee position. As you can well imagine, the number of Indigenous students that come forward for the opportunity around being the Indigenous student trustee, there's not as many candidates. And I'll throw to Superintendent Fothrop and Coordinating Superintendent Agard. I believe our incoming student trustee was acclaimed in the process, and if they could share a little bit more around the most recent election process, just to shed a bit of a light on what the candidate profile looks like. Trustee Mahmood.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. The Indigenous Student Trustee is a relatively newer position, and so the First Nation Métis Inuit team across the system is looking to ensure that it is well known that students who identify as First Nation Métis Inuit know that they would be supported in the role. So through the student advisors, there's a lot of work that goes into first, making sure the information is shared with students who meet the qualifications and sharing that out. And in this case, the student representative is coming from the East, it is one of those where, again, it was shared out widely, but there was only one candidate that came forward.
Thank you. As a follow-up through you, Mr. Chair, to the staff, so I'm thinking that what other ways we can adopt, how we can get to other students to make this a little bit more interesting, right? As we say that, we were claimed, right? Which means that there was not a lot of interest or there's no information out there. So do we, as a board, as part of the process, reach out to our partners as well to make sure that they also reach out to the students from a different channel, because sometimes one channel may not as effective as other channels could be?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Trustee Mahmood. Trustee Mahmood, it's almost as if you were in our meeting 2 weeks ago in regard to what we're looking at for outreach. And that's exactly some of the ideas that we were working through in regard to, and I can let Coordinating Superintendent Agard speak to it more in more detail, but about the outreach, how to get to the students earlier. I mean, we've been having a lot of discussions, and we integrated the discussions around student trustee back to some of the engagement conversations we're having with grades 6, 7, 8 about coming into secondary, and this student trustee opportunity for Indigenous students also was in the mix of a conversation that we had. Coordinating Superintendent Agard, you probably want to contribute greater than I have in regards to this. It's like Trustee Mahmood was in the room, but you can share a little bit more about those conversations.
Yeah, no, thank you, and through you, Chair. If I can add, also to knowing that this information is shared with the IEAC, so the Indigenous Advisory Committee, and making sure it's shared there. The awareness there as well, making sure that we have the outreach, so working with community partners to also find out ways that we can further share out, but definitely it is a work and a journey that we're dedicated to, and making sure that all of our students in New York Region are aware of this opportunity, and specifically that those students who identify as First Nation, Métis, Inuit. And again, I do want to stress the part about being supported, that they know that embarking on a role like this, that they will be supported by community, and the past practice has shown that our students with that support do well.
Thank you, Superintendent.
Excellent. So I have run out
please,
my
yeah,
time.
since there's
If
no
you
one-
allow me,
Sure,
I
go
mean, I'm sure you must have a long list of how we're going to reach out to them. So one of the things could be that we look for opportunities where such gatherings are there, where we have the presence of, and I'll give one example of Powwow, for example. Are we going to set up a booth there where, say, you know, we're engaging with the community and we're trying to reach out to the students there, or any other such opportunities which are there, rather than we expect that we're going to go into the schools, we will expect some people to coming to our session, rather than that we are out there in the community. I think that's where we need to be a little bit more present, right? So I can give you a long list of things, right? You know, I'm a creative guy, so that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Mamu, and I think that's a big job for the communication teams. All right, and thank you for providing your insight. Any other trustee has questions? Anyone online? Let's see. Okay. If there are no questions, oh, sorry. Trustee Dr. Sinclair, please go ahead.
Thank you. Are we going to also look into that to see, because we've given them a 2-year as well. So we need to change that if we're going to be, when we look at the regular student trustee, look at the process for changing that, if we're going to change that, just so as we know that we don't end up with one way and one the other way because we overlooked it, just to remember. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Trustee Dr. Sinclair. Yes, thank you, Dr. Sinclair. As General Counsel Im shared, we will go through the feedback process that you've shared with us in the previous policy and take it forward in this particular policy as well for all student trustees and integrate that into the next steps. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. And thank you, Trustee Sinclair. Trustee Cohen, yes.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering, I know that when Laura used to come to the meetings, it was very far, and I wonder with the student trustee, how they would manage to come. It might be expensive, they don't drive part way or have a place to stay. Have we considered that aspect as not encouraging them to volunteer? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Trustee Cohen. Yes, the answer is yes. Our students are afforded the opportunity for expenses for traveling and those kinds of things for meetings. And the Indigenous trustee may very well be anywhere in the region. So as shared, the next elected student trustee in the Indigenous portfolio is, I believe, from Markham. I'm getting nods, yes, from Markham. And so it depends on what those travels needs are, but we do have expense opportunities for those and supports in place as well. Thank you. And our current trustees have been wonderful also in supporting travel for our trustees. And we're most appreciative of that. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Director, and thank you, Trustee Cohen, for raising that. So to ensure that our student trustees are all covered, so they're not afraid and they're all backed up. Okay, do we have any other trustee that has questions? Okay, if not, without objection, the recommended motion shall be adopted, that in accordance with Board Policy 285, Board Policies, Procedures, and Supporting Documents, Policy 223, Indigenous Student Trustee, will be circulated for comment for 6 school month. Okay. Without objection, the aforementioned motion is adopted. Thank you, everyone. Well, moving on to the next agenda item, information items. Before the committee is the draft policy review schedule for 2026. Once again, I would like to invite Policy Officer Daniel Roberto to present an overview.
Thank you, and through the chair, this is the 2026 draft policy review schedule presented for your information, and happy to answer any questions that the committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Okay, any questions? If not, we are going to adjourn our meeting. The date for the next Policy and Bylaw Standing Committee meeting is scheduled on May 5th, 2026. As there are no further business, thank you everyone for participating at our meeting this afternoon, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.